I got my undergrad in computer science from Texas Southern University. I met this guy. He was walk up to me, and at the time I was pursuing to be a video game developer, and he was just like, "Hey, do you want to hack into things?" And I'm like, "Isn't that illegal?" And he was just like, "Well, there's a way to ethically do it. And I kind of want to show you how you can do it, right?" So what ended up happening was we ended up starting the first cybersecurity club at the institution. And that's where I started learning, a lot about cybersecurity.
Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm joined by Damien Burks. Damien and I got to meet at FutureCon a couple years ago, and we were connected on social media. I don't know if we were connected before we met or how that works, because usually it's funny to go to conferences sometimes. One of the last conferences I went to was Hardware.io. It was a hardware cybersecurity conference. One of the guys I was talking to, I said, yeah, let's connect on LinkedIn. We didn't realize it. We're already connected. So I'm not sure which came first with us, whether we were already connected or if we connected after the fact. But welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And it took a while to finally get you scheduled. A lot of that's just me forgetting to schedule you. So fortunately, we finally got this scheduled. And yeah, and also your episode should go out fairly quick because I usually have a huge backlog of recordings, and starting to get through that. I was going through a job search and kind of got away from recording as much. So fortunately I had a bunch recorded. So I'm glad that we're able to get together and finally get to have this discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing your hacker origin story with our audience, kind of what got you interested up to the point of where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. It started out when I was in college. So I got my undergrad in computer science from Texas Southern University. I met this guy who's one of my close friends today, and he basically walked up to me. And at the time I was pursuing to be a video game developer, and he was just like, "Hey, do you want to hack into things?" And I'm like, "Isn't that illegal?" And he was just like, "Well, there's a way to ethically do it. And I kind of want to show you how that's going to do, how you can do it, right?" So what ended up happening was we ended up starting the first cybersecurity club at the institution. And that's where I started learning, a lot about cybersecurity. And I wanted to figure out how to marry software development and security together. So from there, we started the cybersecurity club. I began teaching people how to build PCs, teaching them about packet analysis and inspection, network security, DevSecOps even. And then from there, stumbled upon my first internship as a DevSecOps engineer at Verizon, graduated, started my career at Verizon here out in Dallas, Texas. And then as I started to, build out my career as a security software engineer at Verizon, I was basically finding my way into the cloud by basically developing cloud native applications and such like that. And when I found the cloud, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I didn't think that, I can just within a click of a button, spin up an EC2 instance or a server. So I started upskilling in AWS. And then a recruiter reached out to me and wanted to interview me for a position at a major financial institution for a DevSecOps engineer. And that exact same person, I ended up leaving Verizon and going to this big financial firm and became a cloud security engineer. And basically, I do a lot of incident response, automation, and developing tooling in the cloud and frameworks. So that's pretty much at a very high level how my hacker origin story started, but it really just started by someone just approached me and asked me if I wanted to hack into things or not.
Very cool. You picked a good area, cloud. So how long ago did you get kind of interested in cloud, just to kind of get some perspective of how that kind of fell into the cloud adoption?
Yeah, I got into the cloud about, I've been here about 4 years. So just about 4.5 years ago. That's when I got into the cloud and I started getting exposed to it. And I started out by getting a AWS certified cloud practitioner first. And then I went and got the certified developer associate and then the solutions architect and a security specialty. And then as I started to ramp up my knowledge and skills, then I went in for the DevOps professional. And this is all AWS related. And during that time, I also became an AWS community builder as well, because I was publishing content on how to get people certified, how to do things, security best practices in AWS, so on and so forth.
That's good. Yeah, that's one of the things too, just kind of lessons for anyone listening on here is to make sure to adopt the modern technologies or the up and coming technologies, because one of the things that happened in the cloud space is a lot of people have been in it for a while, was too busy with the on-prem stuff and they didn't really pivot to the cloud stuff. Or then now all of a sudden they're playing catch up. But for the new folks, if you kind of adopt what's modern or the up and coming stuff, it kind of opens up opportunities otherwise you may not have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how's the cloud stuff been? Because I know there's tons of opportunities, and on-prem stuff is just kind of a dinosaur of technologies compared to, the modern technology out nowadays.
Yeah, I think, the cloud honestly it's been amazing so far. It's day one every day. There's always something new that's coming out, always also a new security risk that presents itself when something new comes out. And I think that there's going to always be opportunity in the cloud, because some organizations are completely invested in it. Some of them are, halfway invested in it. And the public cloud I think it takes away the need for someone to go buy a rack or a couple of servers and just be able to provision things on demand and be able to launch, new businesses, new applications, and so on and so forth. So for me, the cloud is revolutionary in my personal opinion. I mean, it kind of helps level a playing field in a lot of different ways. From a security standpoint, I think that it's the threat landscape is constantly evolving with the cloud. And the reason is because it is so abstract, and there's so many different services that can integrate with the others. You got to make sure that you understand what the service is doing and how it's configured. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't understand how misconfigurations can really cause a breach, or can really like open the door for attackers to hack into your cloud environment, and also how that can inspire.
But it's just a good space to be in, because if you look at IT organizations historically, they've always looked at how they can outsource or offshore work. Because I mean, back in late 90s, early 2000s, they started offshoring a lot of development to overseas, and companies have looked at ways to outsource, different functions, because, if you have on-prem, then you got to have all these system engineers to maintain the servers, do server backups, install hardware, constantly deal with that. And then you have the disaster recovery piece. A lot of back then, people's stuff was on-prem, and maybe they had an off-site data center they could switch off to, that if they were fortunate enough, had the budget, it would be a hot site and they could just easily switch over, or maybe there's some kind of load balancing and stuff going on. But if you're a cloud now, all that's taken care of. Now your business continuity and disaster recovery is kind of there. So it's not a lot of things you don't have to plan for. You still need to plan for the outages and stuff, but at least it makes it a little bit easier than the old way of doing things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're really into the AWS. Have you started looking into any of the Azure or GCP?
I have. So the open source project that I basically run is called the DevSec Blueprint. It basically helps people acts as a guide for people to learn DevSecOps. And a couple of the projects that I have been working with some of the peers that help me run that project is based in Google Cloud, and also one in Azure. The way I see Google Cloud versus Azure, I'm not even going to talk about Azure right now. The way I see AWS and Google Cloud together is this: like, AWS is a lot more mature as a cloud provider. I think that their services are a lot more flushed out. And when it comes to hardening the services from a security standpoint, like adding resource-based policies and all these different things, there's a lot more flexibility in what it is that you can do from a security standpoint. Google Cloud, I don't think it has reached that point yet, based on my experience. But I do think that from a developer experience standpoint, Google Cloud takes the cake. I've studied and obtained a few Google Cloud certifications. It's quite simple because there's not a lot of services that they have compared to AWS. I think AWS has well over 50, if I'm not mistaken. Google Cloud has maybe about like a good 12 or 13 core ones that, you end up like using quite a bit on your day to day. I remember going through and studying for the certification, clicking through the console, and the differences between provisioning an EKS cluster or Kubernetes a EKS cluster versus a GKE cluster, it's so different. In Google Cloud, they make it so easy for you. You literally just go in and click through the console, and it's all right. It's going to be done in 5 minutes. Bam, that's it. But on the AWS side, it may take you a little bit of time to actually create that EKS cluster. And I remember a couple of years ago, before I got into Google Cloud, I think it would take roughly about 20 to 25 minutes for it to complete. So from a development experience standpoint, Google Cloud definitely takes the cake. With Azure, I think that, and this is just my opinion, so far going through the UI, we're trying to provision a DevSecOps pipeline using their, I think it's called Azure DevOps service, and trying to create just a service account for the pipeline was so difficult. I was like, I don't even know where to go because it was very unintuitive compared to some of the consoles that, compared to Google Cloud and AWS. But that could be from a lack of my own understanding as well, because I'm not certified in Azure yet. But eventually I will get there. It's just going to take me a little bit of time. But those are just some of my experiences with with really all three of the cloud service providers, at the major ones at least.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see some of the different uses and stuff, because I know a lot of startups and smaller companies are using GCP, and then you see more of the enterprise are using Azure and AWS, and it's just kind of, and then seeing how some of the apps are,
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of startups using, GCP for their SaaS solutions.
that's very interesting.
Yeah, for some of their cloud-based apps, I've seen them use that. So I don't know what the preference is. I don't know if it's just because these organizations that GCP works out better for smaller organizations than it does, so I don't know if that's the reason behind it, but that's what I've seen. I've worked for several startups and several small companies that they'll use like GCP.
Yeah, I think it's also I think it's easy to use. I remember when I was working at Verizon, and this was before, like while I was getting exposed to AWS, I think Google Cloud was like very, very new. This was back towards 2020, yeah, around 2020, 2021. And one of the engineers that I was working with on my team, he was getting into Google Cloud, and he was just like, the UI just makes sense. Like it's just so easy to do things. And if I need something right away, I could just, with a couple of clicks of a button, I can just go ahead and get it right then and there. And I think that's probably the biggest selling point is the usability and how easy it is to be able to do things. Because I know with startups, like you have to get off the ground very quickly. And if there's a CSP that pretty much says that, well, your EKS cluster, you just put it in autopilot mode and we'll handle everything for you. Might as well go ahead and do it that route and go in that direction. So I can see that.
So for someone wanting to start out learning cloud, since you're an expert in this area, so kind of what would you recommend for someone that's just wanting to learn cloud that hasn't started yet?
So there is one place that I would recommend anyone who wants to learn in cloud go to, and it's called learnthecloud.com. And it's basically an open source project that was created by GPS, Gwyneth, and Rashab. They're both content creators. Rashab's a good friend of mine, and it basically acts as a guide for people to learn how to get in the cloud and what you need to learn on that pathway. So it's just like there's different phases with different capstone projects and all those different things. And now, of course, I'll share the link with you. But that's one place where you can go to learn what it is that you need to know to get into the cloud and some of the concepts, right? And I think that in the cloud, you definitely need to know what the cloud is. You got to understand programming and scripting, because cloud engineering is pretty much automation. It's tying the knots between and integrating various different services to work, building out those architectures in the cloud. Cloud security is definitely something you should understand, and Learn the Cloud talks about that. And then also getting certified. If it were me and I had to go back in time, I would choose, the reason why I will still say choose AWS is because it still has the majority of the market share, and a lot of enterprises default to using it, at least in my experience. Start out with if you have no cloud experience at all, start by getting a foundational certification in that CSP of your choice. And if it's AWS, then of course, get the AWS certified cloud practitioner. And then from there, depending on where you want to go in the cloud and what your career path is, will determine your certification path that you should go down and you should take. I would also add to get an AI certification as well for the specific cloud service provider, because AI is now something that's taking over, and it ain't going nowhere anytime soon. And you're definitely going to want to have a foundational understanding of AI and what LLMs are, and also how to basically leverage the services or use the AI services in the CSP or in the cloud service environment. that's how I would go about getting into the cloud.
Very cool. So you'd mentioned scripting. So what scripting language would you recommend?
You know, I would definitely say Python because I consider Python to be the easiest language of all to memorize and understand. I also think that it is one of the most supported languages. I think GitHub came out with an article. It wasn't too long ago. They say that Python was the number one language that was being used based on like all the source code repos that they had checked in. So it's a very versatile language and it can be used for scripting, or if you want to go deep down into programming, you can use it for that as well. But if you want to, I would say, do anything Kubernetes related or anything dealing with like containerization platforms or orchestration platforms, Go is another language that I think is going to be the new Python moving forward based on how heavy containerization is and how popular it is getting. And even with AI coming into the mix, containerization is still going to be something that's going to be pushed out. And Kubernetes is not going anywhere either. I think, if anything, it's becoming a lot more popular. And it's becoming mostly a requirement to understand when you get into various cloud engineering roles and cloud security roles now.
Very cool. I know one of the reconnaissance tools called OWASP-AMAS. It's written in Go. It's kind of interesting to see how that's all shifted, because back whenever I got into security back in 2004, Perl was still the popular language. People were still scripting in Perl, and then people started shifting to Python. It's interesting to see Go getting more traction.
Yeah.
And for the listeners out there too, if you're not aware, Go it was created by Google. So it seems like it would probably be optimized to work in their environments, I would think, or they'd have some good documentation on how to leverage Go in their GCP infrastructure.
Yeah. I think Kubernetes was also invented by Google and then handed to the CNCF.
Okay. That's
so
cool.
It all makes sense after a while.
Yeah. It's kind of good to see someone come out with something good and just not expected, that they give it to someone else to manage or whatever. It's kind of good to see, instead of, because, so many companies nowadays, they come out with something, they hold on to it, and it's proprietary, and it's, you have to use their platform to use it correctly and all that. So that's kind of nice to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big advocate of open source projects and contributing to open source wherever I can.
So why don't you tell me about you've got a community and you do content creation. If we kind of get into that a little bit, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. A DevSec Blueprint, there's a community for it that I created to help facilitate answering questions, but to also help give people like that one-on-one time to answer any questions that they may have about getting into DevSecOps, or even like give them reviews or, conduct resume reviews, look at blog posts, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing about it is, the reason why I founded the project, I would say, is because for the longest time, I didn't necessarily see a pathway for people, or a place where people can learn how to become DevSecOps engineers. I felt like that was missing. Like, yeah, we have all of these repositories that have the tools and tell you like, oh, you got to learn SaaS tooling and DAS tooling. You got to understand all of these different acronyms, but they didn't really cover like the underlying concepts. Like, oh, well, you got to understand application security foundations and fundamentals. You should probably know programming, and you should know CI/CD, like continuous integration and continuous deployment. So I created that entire website, wrote up all the documentation, gave links to different certifications that you should aim for, with the CompTIA Security Plus being like the default certification. If anyone's looking to get into cybersecurity, the CompTIA Security Plus is the go-to. It is the best entry-level certification, hands down. And within that, I've created within the website, I basically attached a Discord link so people can come in, and it's very active. We have about 550 plus members and counting. So it's growing every day. And so is the project. We have plenty of contributions. There are people who volunteer to help write more documentation. We also have people helping out to maintain some of the DevSecOps pipelines that we wrote, that we created, and those guides for those DevSecOps pipelines. And then for my own personal content creation platform outside of the DevSec Blueprint, I have my own YouTube channel. And the story behind that was, the YouTube channel that I have now was actually the DevSec Blueprint before. the website happen. The YouTube channel was supposed to be a way where I just create DevSecOps related content in video format. And that would include like, oh, this is going to be cloud security and DevSecOps related. I'm going to talk about all things AWS. It's going to talk about like security breaches, all those different things. And I decided halfway during the year, because I launched the DevSec Blueprint last year at the beginning of 2024, was I don't think this is going to scale well. So I ended up rebranding the YouTube channel and made it a bit more intimate, a bit more personal, connected to my own professional life, that not only talks about just DevSecOps, but cloud security, cybersecurity, and then, like anything in general that I'm doing to help someone else out. So I make a lot of content around certification exams, like how to pass the AWS Solutions Architect for one. What was my experience like getting my master's degree in cybersecurity, and how did that help me in my career? Those types of videos that, people can get a different perspective from. So that's pretty much how my content creation journey evolved, I would say, within the past year. And before then, I was writing blog posts. So I had my own blogging website and I started writing blog posts about the things that I was doing. But I've always been like a DevSecOps advocate, and eventually became an engineer. And now I'm just kind of giving back to the community as much as I can.
Well, that's great. As far as, has content creation helped you career-wise?
Oh my God. Man, so I will say this, my content creation, when I started blogging, let's say that I saw that the AWS Community Builders Program was something that, people can get in and apply for to get admitted. And the benefits that came with that was, you get some AWS credit every year, you get discounted reInvent tickets, all these different things. But in order for you to get in, you have to create content and have been consistent at it. So I applied, I got accepted. Wonderful. From there, the amount of connections that I've made in my career and the amount of relationships helped transform the way that I started to approach even getting promotions at work. I also changed the way that I started writing my content. It helped expose me to different things, not just from a security standpoint, but also from a cloud native standpoint. And it was because I got there and started there that I was able to speak at I got the opportunity to speak at conferences like AWS Reinforce, for example, and AWS reInvent, for example. And that alone, when I spoke at Reinforce for the first time, I was speaking on behalf of my company with the framework that I developed for, rapid containment and automation, right? And incident response. And that took me to getting promoted at my job with a pretty sizable pay bump. So I would say that it kind of came back full circle in a lot of different ways, because I was exercising that muscle of just writing to now, you know how to do these things. And we recognize that you write blog posts and we see this. So we're going to give you an opportunity to go public speaking. And then from public speaking, it was like, okay, I like this. I actually like this a lot. I'm getting invited to come to the podcast. I'm also starting to now build my brand around certain things. And then that inspired me to start my own thing, which was the DevSec Blueprint, and start my YouTube channel. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. It's good to hear, because I like to hear that, people share the success stories and the benefits they've gotten through content creation, because it's just amazing what it could do for you. Because for me, once I got into public speaking, podcasting, and all this stuff, it just opened up so many doors. I get opportunities a lot easier. When I've been laid off, I was able to get jobs quicker than I did before. And it was always easy to make a decent level of money compared to before when I was just technical. But it's just really good to do that. And that's one of the things I was excited about having you on, is someone that's a fellow content creator, because it's such a good opportunity. And it's always good to see what other folks are doing. And it's just nice the way people are able to create and give back to the community and create this content before you figure the traditional sense, even before blogs, when you had to write a book or publish papers. Just think how long it took to get that information available. And some people just may have been too busy to see it through the end, or just lost the motivation because it's such a long, arduous process. And so now it's just, you can almost put the stuff out as quick as you think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Content creation will definitely change. It can definitely change your entire career trajectory, honestly.
So for anyone that wanted to get started in content creation, do you have any recommendations?
Yes, I would say start with where you think you would be most comfortable. I would say that first. If you like to write and you're more comfortable with writing, start with writing blog posts. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect off the bat, right? Off the gate. You're just starting. So just start. If you have an idea, put it into words, create a Medium account, put your blog post on Medium or Dev2 or Hashnote, share that with people, get feedback, right? And then from there, you get 1% better each time you release something, change something up differently, make it different, make it better every time. If you're into videos and you think that you want to start with video creation content, I would say the exact same thing. Just start. Use your phone as your camera for the first video. Record it, right? And then over time, start learning how YouTube prioritizes content if you start out there, or how TikTok, the algorithm, how that works, so that you can start creating those thumbnails and those titles and stuff like that. But you have to just start first. It doesn't matter what platforms you want to use. Figure out where you want to start first and just start. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great advice. Sometimes people tend to overcomplicate things, or, don't realize it's less complicated than they think.
You will be surprised that there are people who will read your content or read your blog post or look at your YouTube video when it's completely unedited and appreciate that content that you create. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people, what I'm starting to realize nowadays is a lot of people crave the authentic content, the things that have the mistakes, the things that are unscripted, because that just shows who you are, shows your true self, and it shows, that you're human, right? And AI didn't write it or create it. So it's one of those things where it's just like, when I have my mentees who ask me, like, how do they get started? I just tell them, just start and then get better each time.
That's great advice. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
Absolutely. If there's anyone who's listening that's looking to get into DevSecOps or cloud security, definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn, but go to the DevSecBlueprint.com. That's basically that guide that'll help you navigate that career and get your career started. Or if you're already in IT, it's a guide that you can use to help you transition into DevSecOps/cloud security and DevSecOps. So that's my only thing that I was going to leave. And thank you again, Phillip, for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join me. And thanks everyone for joining. And if you like the episode, make sure to like it, comment, share it with your friends. One of the best things you can do as far as content goes, or any kind of resource, share it with other people, because what's useful to you may be valuable to someone else. If you want to give back to the community and help other people, just sharing information is one of the biggest things you could do. That was really where I got started to begin with. People I knew I had my OSCP. They asked me how to study for the OSCP. What do I do to become a pen tester? Started out there, started teaching, started speaking, started podcasting, and it grew from there. So even if you don't want to grow past.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.